depression is being treated.
Great, thank you. Hi, welcome to In the Groove. I'm Dr. Alicia Acey, and today we're talking about depression, as you could see from the sad clown sitting behind me. Barb, do you have more questions?
I do have a question. You know, everybody always says that women are more depressed than men. Is that true?
Yeah, I've heard that too, and there are statistics that say that, and that's been one of these, I think it's a myth, by the way. The truth is that depression is an equal opportunity illness. It affects people of all socioeconomic statuses, of all genders, of all races, and yes, there is research that says that women tend to be more depressed than men, but if you read on past that, you'll find that women are more likely to recognize symptoms of depression and seek help for their depression. So, when you're talking about compiling statistics, people have to answer those surveys. So if you look at, as a psychologist, how many patients do you have that are suffering from depression? How many there are women and how many of them are men? If someone's filling out these surveys, more women are likely to seek out help than men. So they'd be listed as suffering from depression more often, first of all. Second of all, one of the interesting things was there was a focus group done by the National Institute of Mental Health, and they found, when they were talking about depression awareness, that when they gave a survey about depression to a group of men, they endorsed just as many symptoms as the women. The problem is that the men didn't realize that those were symptoms of depression. So the men may suffer from depression equally. They just don't know it or don't seek out help for it.
Well, that's interesting, fact that you say that, because one of the questions that I was going to ask is, what happens if you don't get treated? So if men are not recognizing it and they kind of just put it away, what happens with their depression?
Well, that's, and for anybody really who doesn't seek treatment for depression, it tends to get worse. These things can affect your physical body, it can affect relationships, it can, take people down really, really difficult times. And I think that I would be remiss if in a show about depression to not touch on the topic of suicide. We don't have enough time today to give this topic its due and really talk about suicide in a lot of depth. But we do need to, talk about the fact that it's a reality and that it is something that, just knowing a few things, like if you know someone or are feeling really hopeless, if somebody starts talking about someone you know, someone you love, about feeling like there's no purpose to living anymore, they don't know why they're here anymore, if they start calling people, or giving their things away, not in a manic episode type of way, like here, but like, I just wanted to tell you I really have always loved you, or I've cared about you, random phone calls. These are signs of suicidal ideation. Again, there's a big difference between someone who's just thinking about suicide. I think a lot of people, most people have probably thought, what would it be like if I wasn't here? This is entirely different than someone who really wants to kill themselves and has a plan and has access to materials to actualize that plan. And one thing that's very important to note is that if you think that somebody that you care about, that you love, is contemplating suicide, it is okay, first of all, to say to them, I'm really worried about you, and are you thinking of hurting yourself? Are you thinking of killing yourself? People often think that that's going to put the idea in that person's head. The idea is already there. And you're not going to, oh, wow, that's an idea I hadn't had before. And if they say yes, well, then what do? You don't leave them alone, and you contact anybody that you know that is a family member of theirs, a friend of theirs, a peer of theirs. If they're an adult, their spouse, contact those people, even if they say, please don't.
Well, I have another question because we're talking about suicide, and I know that, what about teens? Because I know that that's a real hot issue with teen suicide and depression, and children. Do children get depressed?
Yeah, it's a great question. Yes, they do. Children and teens do suffer from depression. Teenagers suffer from depression a lot. And the tricky part is all those symptoms that I listed about unipolar depression earlier, some of them apply to teenagers, but not all of them. Depressed teenagers present much differently than a depressed adult, where a depressed adult might seem more sad and down and, just more of a low affect. Teenagers present very irritable. They are agitated and angry and irritable and a very low frustration tolerance. They have very short tempers. And things to look for are also things like changes in their peer groups, abrupt changes, abrupt changes in sort of their moods. I mean, of course, teenagers are moody, right? We all know this. But severe changes, in how they're dressing and some of the music they're listening to. Now, does this mean if someone changes the type of music they're listening to, are they depressed? No. You're looking for patterns. And I think that if you have a teenager at home, or if you're a niece or a nephew or a cousin, it is okay to say, you seem like you've been going through a hard time lately, or how are you doing? And I think that it's okay to say, I'm here for you. I know this is a tough time. But people who say, snap out of it, or what do you have to be sad about? You have all these things. That's just not helpful.
Well, so if you recognize that, for instance, your teen, if you recognize that your teen is depressed, or you see some of those symptoms in him, what are the treatments that can be offered to him or her?
And similar to adults as well. Teens or adults, the treatments. I mean, obviously, as a psychologist and as a therapist working, if I work with teenagers, the way I speak to them, the way that I would work with a teenager might be different than an adult, somewhat. But really, the options are the same under the same big headings. Talk therapy, psychotherapy is often very helpful. Identifying different thought patterns and different ways that people get in their own way, and sort of helping people get out of that funk, and different ways they can adjust and develop coping strategies. And medication is often helpful. I'm a big believer that medication is best when combined with talk therapy, with psychotherapy. If you do both, if somebody needs medication, that they also would benefit from being in therapy. People who just go get medication and think that's the...
What's the level of depression that medication is? If you are diagnosed with depression, do you instantly get on medication?
No. It really depends, I mean, I'm not a big pill pusher. I don't prescribe. I'm not a psychiatrist. But it is something that depends on the situation. Now, when you're talking about bipolar disorder, remember the two poles, that's something that almost always requires medication. And I think we've all seen those commercials on TV for all the various antidepressants. But I think that it's very complicated how these things work. If you think about it like this, if our body, all the messages in our body are sent through electrochemical transmissions. And if you remember anything, which is difficult for me to remember, back to high school biology, remember the nerve cells? They kind of looked like spiders. There are a certain number of neurotransmitters in our body: dopamine, norepinephrine, acetylcholine, and serotonin is one of them. These are the things that if I say to myself, I'm going to move this arm, I move this arm. If someone has Parkinson's disease, their arm might move involuntarily because they're not sending that message, but the arm is moving. When it comes to depression, serotonin is a neurotransmitter that is largely thought of as being a contributor to mood. And often a lack of serotonin contributes to a decreased mood, lack of appetite, decreased sex drive, hunger. It controls all those things. And so when people take an antidepressant, they often think they're going to take serotonin pills. That's not true.
That's just what I was thinking. I was like, oh, is that what they're taking to level out their balance?
And what they're doing is, if the nerve cells were all connected, it would be fine. It would be just like travel right through the tunnel. But since there's this space in between called a synapse or synaptic cleft, there is serotonin that shoots out here and it has to be picked up over here. And there are receptor sites for serotonin. When the receptor sites get dull, they don't pick up the serotonin. So what happens is it goes back. And I don't know if you've heard the term SSRI. That's something that you see on the commercials a lot of a type of antidepressant. It stands for selective serotonin reuptake inhibitor. When serotonin comes out this side and isn't picked up at the receptor sites and it goes back, that's called reuptake. What these antidepressants do is they block the reuptake. Serotonin comes out, but it can't go back. So naturally what happens is more serotonin gets pushed along.
And keeps you balanced.
So really what you're doing is you're not taking more serotonin or putting more serotonin in your body. Those medications just help a process, that's already in place work better. It's like if there's something blocking, in your plumbing in your house, you put something in to clear it out. It's just helping a process to flow better.
Well, Dr. Acey, that was wonderful. That was a lot of great information, and I thank you very much, and we are out of time.